Well, we made it. Look, apologies first up for running late. For those of you who have been waiting patiently, we've had a couple of messages come through already. Just had a few technical difficulties just for a change. So, but we are with you. G'day and welcome to episode 15 of this live podcast of an atheist, a believer, and a pastor walk into a bar, and they said it had never happened. And we have done it live right now on YouTube and Facebook. G'day, I'm your host, Peter Rowe, one of three non-believers tonight. So the God botherers are in deep, deep trouble. I'll introduce the other two believers also in a minute. Tonight, we're going to be digging into a subject that I think touches almost everyone in some way or another, maybe without you even knowing it. Tonight, we're asking the big question, is there a spirit world, and how do we find out? We would love you to join in tonight as we're live. You're watching at 8 o'clock, just after, because we're late, Australian Western Standard Time, on the 3rd of April, 2024. What happened to March? Guys, we're into April already. I cannot believe it. Scary stuff. Great to have you tuned in. Thanks for being a part of tonight's podcast. I'm really looking forward to talking about what is predominantly, for me anyway, the unknown, the debatable, the unproven, the mystical, the sometimes scary. Talking about the spirit world, the supernatural. Woo! I've never really believed in spirits, mainly because I've never seen any evidence. Now, I don't diss those that think there is such a thing. Maybe they've seen or experienced something to convince them that spirits or ghosts are real. I'm okay with that. Belief in the spiritual world seems mainly harmless, but like anything that can't be proven with empirical evidence, humans will exploit, muddying the waters even more. And where there's money to be made, well, out come the charlatans, the liars, the freaks, the cheats, the misleading, and the crooks, making it almost impossible to separate the true believers from the exploitative. Thankfully, we have an amazing, diverse panel for tonight's podcast. Our two regular co-hosts, our Bible teacher Luke Feeney, deep thinker and believer Richard Strauss, and a well-travelled man of many hats, Suresh Rajan, back with us, and the outrageously outspoken man about town, Jason Jordan. Five amazing minds. What could possibly go wrong?
Brilliant. Good to be
Welcome.
here.
Well, yeah, great to have you guys.
Hey,
Sorry?
Hey, just quickly, can I swap with Rich? Can I be the deep thinker and Rich be the Bible teacher? He does teach the Bible. I've seen him do it.
Mate, if you reckon you can pull it off, go for it.
I've got a new name for the show as well.
Right.
An atheist, a believer, a pastor, a human rights activist, and a really, really good-looking guy.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's good. We just need to find the fifth.
Yeah, clearly doesn't apply to anyone here, unless Jason is, painting a very nice picture of himself. going from what we can see tonight, mate, it ain't going to work for you. Welcome, gentlemen. The spirit world and its incredible history from the seemingly harmless tasseography. Does anyone know what tasseography is?
Study of Tasmania.
Or tassels.
Study what? Study what, Tasmania? No takers? It is reading tea leaves, believe it or not.
Oh.
Tasseography. I don't know why it's called that. Which will, of course, help you tell your future. The dark and bizarre world of supernatural. Where to start is witchcraft, numerology, astrology, the occults, reading minds, bending spoons, magic, conjuring up dead spirits, Ouija boards, seances, ghosts, and the Holy Spirit, also tarot reading. The list is endless. So what's the attraction? Why are we so obsessed with finding out our future, such as the basis of many spiritual beliefs? But what does spirit actually mean? The term spirit means animating or vital principle in man and animals. It's derived from the Old French esprit, which comes from the Latin word spiritus, soul, ghost, courage, vigor, breath, and is related to spare, which is to breathe. There is so much to talk about, and there are so many aspects of the spiritual realm. Do we all have a spirit, sometimes referred to as our soul? What is the soul if not a spirit? Suresh, I'm going to start with you, get a quick lowdown from you, and then we've got to get to our questions because we've already had a couple of posts on which we'll read. Are you in any way, shape, or form a spiritual man? If you are not, why not?
Look, I guess having grown up in places like India and Brunei and amongst the people who were considered to be the headhunters and so on in Brunei in the early days when I was there, I was surrounded by people who believed in spirits, and I certainly have no evidence to indicate that there is such a thing as a spirit. There were people that I know were at various functions who were said to be possessed by the spirit, and then would start to behave in very strange ways in my presence, and they would be doing things at the beat of a drum, etc. Years later, when I sat back and thought about what exactly happened, I could actually see that what they were doing was actually having an epileptic seizure.
Oh, geez.
But that was put down to be, and the reality was, and quite honestly, when I was CEO of Epilepsy WA, I learned a lot about, recognizing those epileptic seizures as they occurred. And I looked at these people who were in a trance, and just as the music picked up and they were going into that epileptic stage, and you could see that's exactly what they were doing, and then they'd come and just collapse at your feet, and no one had any idea what to do.
Wow.
It's quite frightening, really. And there is a particular, from the part of India where I come from, South India, where my parents come from. They go through this particular ceremony or rite where someone is making a sacrifice to the gods, but what happens there is that the drum beating takes them to builds to a crescendo, and as it gets to that highest level of the crescendo, the person who is making the sacrifice is using a sword to bang on his head until blood starts to pour, and that's the sacrifice. But he feels no pain. He feels no, and it doesn't have any. I imagine he'd have a headache for a week or so. But at the time, it is said that he feels no pain because he's possessed of the spirit. Reality was that he'd really literally passed out and had gone to a stage of almost unconsciousness, and this was some kind of activity that was just continuing almost as a motor function of some kind. It was just bizarre. So no, I'm not a believer at all, and like all good marriages, mine is one that is comprised of one believer and one complete non-believer.
Very good. Thank you. The answer is no. You can go home now. But thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And listen, I just want to go and check Frank Tovey. Frank, thank you so much for getting on board nice and early, and your patience too in waiting for us to get our technical issues sorted out. But Frank's put on a couple of things, and he said, I would say nothing in science even points to the possibility that spirits exist or could exist. We are only animals, but people seem to think that we are somehow special for some strange reason. And I appreciate that and respect what you're saying, Frank. What I have noticed in doing a lot of research for this tonight is that it is the most widely spread, not issues the wrong word, but it's incredibly popular if you drill down on all of the kind of things that people are into. As I mentioned, numerology and tarot cards and all of that stuff. Everyday people who perhaps wouldn't consider themselves to be spiritual at all will just toot on down to the markets and have their future told by someone who calls themselves a medium. And there was actually one of our local markets down there. There's a little sign out the front said medium, and I saw her later, and she was a small at least. Folks, if you've just tuned in, they don't get any better than that. Anyway, so look,
I'll do the jokes.
Please don't. I've heard them, all of them. So. Thanks for that, Frank. We are going to talk a lot about it tonight, and hopefully we can. And I'm not saying at all, as I mentioned before, whether they're spirits or not. I simply don't know. I've watched many programs, including looking for ghosts in scary buildings, and there's a noise and there's a sound. And these shows have been going for 30, 40, 50 years. I've never, ever seen any evidence whatsoever that there is something there that can be filmed, that can be investigated. Sorry?
Is that Scooby Doo? I've seen that documentary.
Yeah. Scooby. Yeah, thanks for that, Luke. Is that your contribution to tonight? No, this is deep and meaningful, people. We're having far too much fun. So look, I'm going to just leave it open now and go through the serrations that he's saying, and we know that he's not a spiritual man. But guys, jump in whenever you like and just give us your 2 bobs worth about what the whole spiritual realm means to you, if anything. And obviously from a Christian perspective, spirits and soul and stuff is very much a part and parcel of the makeup of a Christian person. So what about one of the Christians?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm not skipping over you, Jace. I'm just getting, they're going to find it hard as it is.
Yeah, I'll jump in with something. I think you alluded to where I would like to go with it. The origins of the word spirit is probably quite wide compared to what we'd popularly call it today. In the modern sort of philosophical context, in the modern world, we tend to see, we tend to talk about the spirit, even in a Christian context, that there's like all of the physicalness of the world, and somehow like spirit or soul is this extra thing that sort of might animate or might be like a ghost in the machine, that kind of idea. And I think that's even amongst Christians, it's a popular idea in the sense that you've got a body and your soul sort of inhabits for a while, and when it's gone, your soul might go somewhere else. And that's that's sort of a popular level way of looking at it. But looking a little bit further afield and maybe more toward the philosophical end of the discussion rather than the sort of lived experience of the everyday person, you start thinking about soul and spirit, or the non-physical part of the world, and then you get into things like breath, the breath of God, the vital part of existence. So around it, but when the Christianity was getting started, they didn't see a sharp division between what you can see and touch, like we would call the physical nature, and spiritual nature as 2 separate things. They actually saw them as completely interwoven. So there were 2 ways of talking about the one thing. You wouldn't be correct in saying me as a human has a body and has a soul. You would say something like me as a human being is a body and is a soul. In the same breath, they're just 2 different ways of looking at the whole existence. So there was what seemed to be a holistic view of being got split apart in the modern sort of world. So I tend to view this whole thing from a very philosophical, as has become apparent every time we talk on this thing. But I tend to see spirit less as this extra thing that can be added to the physical world, as another way of talking about what we are, obviously in a non-physical sense. I do believe that reality consists of more than just the physical realm. And we could talk about that more later, but that's sort of the sort of highbrow Christian view that borrows a lot from other non-Christian sort of worldviews as well.
So where does the Holy Spirit stand in the triumvirate? Is that a physical presence, or the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit?
Yeah, you know, the Trinity is the hardest part of Christian doctrine to even begin to try and talk about. My shorthand is, because when you're talking about the Trinity, you're talking about a single essence, God, for want of a better word, a single essence, but there's three persons. And then you get in a whole discussion, what is a person? But the shorthand is God the Father, God the Son, internal relationship. And it's almost like the communication, the loving relationship between them is the Spirit. That it's a person, but it's very much the dynamic flow
Yeah.
of relationship.
So
It's a
the
very
essence,
esoteric kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. But since you brought up Holy Spirit, it's interesting. I'll
right.
put this one out there.
You.
It's really interesting when you read. Apparently, because I'm not a biblical scholar. I don't speak or even read the original languages, so I have to go on, experts and what their discussions. But it seems that the latest good scholarship around the early Christian scriptures, what we've come to think of as a very marked distinction between Holy Spirit and the human spirit really wasn't there when, for instance, the Apostle Paul was writing. Apparently, when you read through his writings in the original languages, it's very unclear if he's talking about Holy Spirit or God's Spirit. Even sometimes it seems that he's actually equating the two in a very real way. There seems to be an idea that spirit is a universal thing that we participate in rather than a thing that you have very separate. So it tends to be more of a Eastern view of things that was very much there, which has been sort of worked on in the West to something that we see as quite different nowadays. But yeah, really interesting when we talk about spirit, Holy Spirit, spirituality. In what I would argue in a Christian point of view it's not something separate. It's actually a dimension of reality that is in the non-physical rather than this extra component of people. So what that means, no time for a Bible study right now, but yeah.
Could have fooled me. I was just about to say, number 4, come in, your time is up.
Yes.
No, very interesting. No, look, it is a really interesting discussion, though, Richard, about the Holy Spirit as a Christian of some time, as everyone that watches knows that. I mean, you never really got a handle on what anyone was actually referring to when you spoke about the Holy Spirit. You didn't experience the Holy Spirit as the same as everything else. You couldn't see, so you really didn't know, other than a kind of a vague concept of something which was a part of the Trinity, but by and large, it was kind of just pushed aside, I think, and it just became a little bit too complex and difficult to understand, or difficult to present to people in layman's terms that they could wrap their head around it. But interesting.
Right,
thank you. Fenton is back with us again. Great to hear you again, Fenton. He goes, "Hey ho!" That sounds like he might have been a sailor at some stage in his life or something, or walking the plank. And there's 2 people in Albany who are busy at the moment. One of them is Jason. The other one is my brother, Greg. The question should be, is there anything outside our physical existence? Then you avoid the semantics around the word spirit. That is true. We can look at it that way. Is there anything outside our physical existence? The question is good. It doesn't help us to answer it, though, does it? Because we don't know. We don't know. It's hard to believe, growing up being told we have a soul. People say it, and I've said it in my life. I can feel it in my spirit. There's something inside I can feel, but is that just me? Is that just my brain feeling it? Is there a soul or a spirit? Jace, go on, your hands up.
He's itching.
I'm champing at the bit. I really am. All right. First of all, I see things when I have a lot of spirits. Point number 1.
Not dead people.
Point number 2. There are charlatans And there's so many charlatans, so many fake mediums, so many fake soothsayers and psychics and tarot card readers, that what it does is, even if there was any veracity to any of the claims, there are so many fakes out there that it completely destroys anybody's genuine belief in this kind of thing. Anybody who's rational in any way, shape, or form is just going to point at all the charlatans and go, there's a perfect example of it just doesn't exist. It's not real. That said, for the last 10 years or so, I've constantly pondered over the idea of what is the difference between a dead body and a living body in that space of 5 minutes when someone passes away. Does it weigh any different? Does it have a different electrical charge? What is the difference? What has disappeared from the body? And remember, I'm a rationalist. I'm all about the empirical evidence, but I have not yet been able to explain, or have it explained to me, what the difference is when someone dies. Why can't we bring them to life? What has disappeared? My final point. The reason why I think so many people are into tarot readings and crystal balls and all of these weird things is because they're after easy answers. And you can't blame people for that, because life is complex. Life has a lot of questions that remain unanswered. People want to know that someone else can give them the answers. And if those answers are plausible, positive, and in the ball, in the general area of the question that they're asking, it's like the horoscopes as well. They're all in the same basket as far as I'm concerned. People are looking for easy answers. And frankly, Pete, as long as it doesn't like hurt anybody, I don't have a whole lot against it. I just don't think that we should be inculcating children into believing it as well. And I know I haven't touched on the religious side of things, but I cede the floor.
But yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, we have got, look, a good point. We have got not all night, but we've got a little bit of time anyway. But I mean, you're right, Jace, about the amount of people who just want to have someone tell them that something good, because you'll notice that whenever you go to these people, they don't give you a disaster story. They tell you something really good. You're going to meet someone, you're going to get a new job. And even if you tell people that the person they're going to see isn't real, or it's just like at a big show, at a big concert, where the people do cold calling and stuff, they still go knowing full well they're going to be conned, but they're still willing to do it because they know something good is going to happen. I think I might have mentioned before, a few weeks back, I interviewed a medium on my radio show in Mandurah, and I thought, just have a bit of fun. And I said, okay, look, tell me about my father. And she said, oh, he's cheeky. He just winked at me, and he's got a cigarette in his hand. And everything she said was the complete antithesis of what my father ever was or ever could have been. Nothing about what she said. My brother in Albany, Greg, will be laughing at this, because she just, I thought, wouldn't you say no at the risk of embarrassing yourself in front of all the listeners on radio, that clearly you have no idea what you're talking about? And I said, at the end of it, I said, look, I'm sorry, everything you've said about my father is 100% wrong. She said, oh, look, that can happen sometimes. There's a bit of a mix up in the spiritual realm.
Pete, hang on. Maybe there's something your mum hasn't told you.
It was just it was ridiculous, and I did enjoy a little bit of not embarrassing her, but certainly if you want to come on and make a claim like that, you better have something to back it up. Otherwise, it's going to end disastrously. Luke, I think we all should have a setup like you. You're sitting back there with your cushions, like Lord Mark. I mean, seriously, how comfortable is he?
Mate,
I forgot. I'll make you.
You won't. Yeah, I forgot that I was participating in this podcast. I thought I was spectating for a while. I was really enjoying it.
So look, without going into the Bible too deeply, because we've already had the sermon on the Mount. And what Rich had to say about the Holy Spirit, I mean, it's covered to a degree, but from a bloke. Before even, let's say you're a Christian or whatever, did you grow up being told or thinking that you were a person that had a spirit or a soul within, and that kind of enthralled you to some degree, or just nothing ever happened?
I mean, I wasn't raised like that, but I think I had an intuition. I think most of us do, but we kind of, for example, when we think of things, we think of ourselves being conscious of ourselves. We don't think of the brain being this organ, this kind of tissue and muscles and electrons firing. That's not the image we get. The image we get is of something within us that's actually thinking and comprehending. So, I think from an intuition point of view, I did kind of sense that that there was something within me that I guess you could call a spirit or a soul. From a Christian point of view now, it's I clearly believe that there is a world beyond the physical world that we see. I think there is for want of a better term, a supernatural type realm. But in saying that, it's difficult because I really resonated with what Jace said around you get a lot of people playing in this space and they're playing in this space and exploiting people. And we see that in church spaces as well around prophetic, people with what we would call a prophetic gift, and they will exploit that. So there is something in us that wants to look at that and go, well, it's all rubbish, and rightly so, from the anger and from seeing that this is someone's been exposed in they're actually a charlatan, they're exploiting people. But I think we've got to be careful with throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I know certainly in that perspective, but so I do believe that we have a spirit. But I think it's difficult as well because we can get stuck with definitions. Words have no meaning in and of themselves. They only have the meanings that we give them. And the word spirit or soul are words that we have used for thousands of years to try and understand something beyond our physical self. So it probably means different things to a lot of different people and has done over history. So it's hard to get. We shouldn't get stuck in what the meaning of those words are, but rather we should look at what they're pointing towards. I think is a better way.
Aren't we drawing a distinction there, Luke, between and Richard, you touched on this earlier as well, the spirit within us and the spiritual being that is something outside of us. So I don't know that. Are we drawing a distinction between those two? Or are we saying, look, that there is a thing that you can identify that is within you? You can call a spirit, but you question whether or not there is this other being outside of you that's floating around in the universe somewhere. Is that?
There are many Christians that would draw that distinction, and non-Christians that would draw that distinction. The idea of needing to, I think, invite God into your heart kind of draws that distinction as well, saying you have your own spirit, but then you need to get God to kind of enter this. Me personally, my stance would be, I don't think they're separate. I think we are animated, and I think Rich mentioned it by talking about the breath of God. I believe that would be a better way to understand it, that we are animated within. And maybe what we would call inviting God into your heart may be just an awareness of what it is that's energizing your life force. Of course, I don't expect anyone else to believe that, but as a Christian, that's sort of where I'm playing it. Mm-hmm. And so, because I think it becomes difficult when you pull that thread of like, I have a spirit, but then there's also this other spirit outside that needs to kind of come in. Then what happens? Have you got two? Which one do you listen to? And which is, does that mean our spirit's bad and the spirit of God is obviously would have to be good? So what does that mean that they're separate? That's the stuff I've wrestled with. So I think they are one and the same, and it would be more just an awareness of what that is, which could be controversial, but I'm no stranger to that.
Can I just ask a quick question, sort of based on something you just said? It's slightly tangential, but it's related. It's been my experience in my adult life that most of the people who have gone to God have found God because they've needed God. They've had something happen in their life, an event or just some sort of maybe from a tragedy to just a desperate need for a little bit of external attribution, a little bit of a sense that there are things that are bigger than them and that they can get some guidance and get some love from outside of their own realm. Is that something that you sort of identify in people as well, or is that simply a bias that I've got as a non-believer?
No, I mean, absolutely. I've seen that happen. That's many times I've seen people come to an awareness of God through a crisis, through a trial, through being lost.
Mm.
But I've also seen it in another way where it's almost like God's almost chased someone down. They've had no interest in a relationship with God or whatever we're talking about there, and yet they can't seem to shake this sense that there is something more, that there is something beyond, and then in exploring that, they will develop a faith. That's really part of my story was more like that than it was actually kind of needing God. So yeah, I think God works in different ways within that space.
I'm just
And
wondering if
You go.
sorry, go on. I was going to say, just wondering, just as you were saying that, Luke, about whether what we are now is just something that's ingrained in human beings. If we go back to the first human beings where the spiritual realm didn't exist, that there was no understanding, that had to have happened, I'm assuming, from the very beginning, that we were just as we were, and then whether it was wanting to explanations, as we know, the development of gods and that to explain what's going on, and then of course the world became very much aware, or maybe they weren't aware, but maybe they thought that there was the spiritual realm. So it's been a part of humanity for so long that we just automatically accept that there must be something there, that it can't be nothing there. And it ties into me with religion perfectly. There has to be more. I'm fascinated by what you said, Jace, which I want to get back to in a sec. I know Suresh has to leave early tonight, but there's a few things coming from Fenton and also Greg. So we'll just have a quick look at them, and Frank as well. Alcoholics Anonymous, when tested, has a 5 to 8% success rate. That's plus 90% failure, yet the status quo believes in the spiritual solution. Meanwhile, other secular methods are up to 60% success rate. I'm assuming, Fenton, it's a powerful statement you've made. I'm assuming you've got some stats to support that. In itself, it seems quite amazing, but be interesting to look into that further. And you're obviously talking about information that you perhaps experienced. So thanks, Fenton. Great to have you on board. It backs it up with the spiritual solutions are unfortunately shrouded in misinformation nowadays. Greg's throwing in a curly one, which I expect nothing else from you, dear brother. Have any of you ever experienced the feeling that there is an essence within you that was not from your mind or body, which is what I want to throw the ball to Suresh. Have you ever experienced the feeling that there is an essence within you that was not from your mind or your body, and you just could not work out where it could have come from? I think we've all perhaps felt that. We might go around the table, as it were. But Suresh?
Look, I must say that I haven't, and I was thinking back to when Jason was speaking earlier, that you talked in terms of a crisis getting you back towards religion or that spiritual aspects. My crisis of health actually led me the other way, and much more in the rational space, and much more in the space of dealing with medicos who knew and understood the science of my body, and took me to that space where I questioned when doctors were telling me that I had a defined period of time, and it came back to that view that it was not them that were going to make that decision, nor some other being. It was me that was going to make that decision as to when I was going to die. So I went the other way. I went back to a much more rational position, where previously I might have accepted that that was God's way, or that was what God wanted for me, and that was what was going to happen to me. So, but you're right, Jason. I think it is that crisis of health, emergency, tragedy, whatever it may be, that leads you potentially closer to religion. I chose to go the other way and away from religion altogether. And yet I saw the exact opposite in people like my father and so on, who, when he had his cancer, suddenly became incredibly spiritual and very much more in tune with the religious beliefs and religious doctrine. So, so coming back to that question, no, I don't. I think I can rationalize almost everything that I do, and everything that I feel is that there's a rational reason for every one of those things. So I can't see that there's any other being that's directing me in that faith.
Has there ever been a sense that you feel like you've missed out, and although you wish you could sense a spiritual presence of any dimension whatsoever? Because of course you've had a lot to do with Hinduism, which is incredibly spiritual. In fact, when you leave here tonight, you're going to see the parents of Aishwarya, who, of course, is the 3rd anniversary of the passing of the young girl. And I've seen the photos of their get together, and it's very, very spiritual. What does that mean to you?
And I tried to sit there and listen to all of the conversation that was going on, and the priest was asking us as participants there to ask Aishwarya for her blessings, and you make offerings of food and drinks, etc., on to the gods, but also to the spirit of Aishwarya, because you want her to bless you with food and drink for the rest of your lives. And I found that really hard to come to terms with. Why am I asking? Hey, look, the only person that's going to determine that is me, and my ability to earn some income to go down to the local Woolies or Coles and buy the food and drink that I need. So, yet all of the other people there found incredible comfort in doing that. I found that quite fascinating. And look, a lot of again, coming back to something that Jason said earlier about the exploiters in this space. One of the things that occurred today was the priest was taking. He had a little bottle of water which he poured into a little earthenware container, and he took these leaves that were supposedly blessed, and he would dip these leaves in the water and sprinkle that water on us. That water was supposed to have come from the Ganges River, very holy, etc. Also, the river where all of the deceased bodies are left in to rot, and I just thought, I don't want any part of that water on me. Not at all. I have no idea whose rotten flesh is sitting in that bottle, but I don't want any part of it. So, but yet, I know, I know of people who have been up there during the schooling periods near the Ganges, and then every holiday they've gone swimming in the Ganges River, then taken these bottles of water down to their villages back home in the southern part of India, and all of a sudden barren women were suddenly pregnant because they'd sprinkled this water on them. I didn't want to go there as to what was happening, but one of the rationalists who used to do that as a child suddenly realized that he didn't have the time to go to the Ganges to get the water, so he would fill up these bottles at the railway station from the tap there. But the level of pregnancy never fell. Baron Wilmer was still falling pregnant because of this water that came from the railway station. I don't know. You know, so yeah, I've never felt like I've missed out on anything. I've just come back to the rational in terms of all of those rituals and rites that occur that are supposedly spiritually based. I just can't find any comfort or any sense of loss there at all.
Interesting. Frank has joined us again. Frank was the first of our correspondence tonight. He's saying, I guess that spirits, the breath of life, just refers to air and oxygen. I mean, it seems fairly rational statement to make, doesn't it? I guess that spirits, the breath of life, just refers to air and oxygen. Yeah, absolutely. And Fenton, again, a good source of that info on Alcoholics Anonymous is a Sober Truth by Dr. Lance Dodds, if anyone is interested in reading that. A Sober Truth by Dr. Lance Dodds was referring to those percentages of success with Alcoholics Anonymous. So thanks, Fenton. Yeah, look, we are here for what is probably another 3/4 of an hour, talking hopefully about spirits, but also about whatever it is that you want to discuss. Jump on YouTube or Facebook if you're watching us live, and give us a holler. So let's go back around to Greg's question. Jace, have you ever experienced the feeling that there is an essence within you that was not from your mind or your body?
Well, I can hand on heart say that that's happened a couple of times, and both of them are thanks to LSD, which, you know, it's not really something to admit, but psychedelic drugs, and, you know, it's not something that I do regularly, but when I was a younger man at university, I did try it twice. And as a direct result of those experiences, I promised myself I would never do it again because I enjoyed it too much. And it took me to a completely different place. That said, I'm a little bit like Suresh. I have multiple sclerosis, and that diagnosis and the illnesses that I've had and the things that have happened to me since have actually driven me much more down a path of rationalism than a call out to an entity of some description. And I know it's on me to stay as fit as I can, to eat as healthily as I can, all of the things I need to do to stay alive and to stay not disabled are on me. And so when I discover new medications, I will initiate a visit to a doctor to get a prescription for the things that I've researched. And doctors hate that, of course, because very often they know what they know. And suddenly this guy comes along who's done his research, not just on YouTube, and says, this is legal. I want this because I've talked on some other user groups where this has been the outcome of it. But I do have to say, Pete, I probably, unlike Suresh, am extremely envious of people who have God. That satisfaction and that comfort of knowing that there is something that they can believe in, to know that there's more to life, to know that there's an afterlife. I think, especially if you've lost a loved one, a partner or a child, or even, just someone you care about, to have that belief that you are going to see them again, I think for a lot of people is extremely comforting. But again, I go the other way. For me, knowing that when this comes to an end, for me, it's over. There is no more. There is no ongoing life. It makes me enjoy and appreciate what I have now all the much more. Everything is now for me, because I don't believe there's anything afterwards. If there is, that's fantastic. If there isn't, well, I've not lost out on anything. So, in fact, everything that I do in my life now is aimed at keeping the people around me as happy as I possibly can, because to me, that's what life is all about. I'm happy when the people around me are happy, and I don't need anybody else to tell me that or any book to teach me that. That's a realization that I've come to purely through watching the people around me. The nicer I am, the more I give, the more charitable and empathetic I am, it comes back to me. And Suresh, you know all about this. That's karma.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, go on.
Sorry. No, like Jason, I think, I spend a lot of time doing, the human rights stuff that I do because I get satisfaction from that I've achieved something for them. But it comes back to, and it's a very selfish reason, yes, but it can be seen as selfless because you're helping somebody else, but I'm doing it for selfish reasons. It's to satisfy my ego, my desire to be seen as somebody who helps others.
Yeah, the late Christopher Hitchens had a similar outlook when talking about morals and the Bible and the Ten Commandments. And he said, I donate blood, not out of a sense of moral duty, but it made him feel fantastic to be able to help other people. So
Yep.
it was rewarding for both people. Sorry?
It just comes back to the one commandment again.
Yes, don't be a dick. That's right. I talked about that today. Interesting you said, though, Jason, before we move on to the other guys, just to get that feedback on Greg's question. You said that the people, the knowing about the spiritual realm. That's my tipping point, as well as I know it will be with yours. Is that there is no knowing. That's the confusion again. And I find every discussion about spiritual realm, supernatural, Holy Spirit, God, the whole bit, we are just left again talking about something fascinating without there being an end result, without there being, okay, so we've got that tonight. We have proven, we all now know this is real, this is true, beautiful. Let's do it again next week. But we always go away going, well, we still don't know. We're no closer to knowing if God exists, if prayer works, if the spirit realm is just stuff that people have made up over centuries. We still don't know.
Why? This is my big question, Pete. Why can't he just show me? Why can't he just show everybody? I just want one event, right? Suddenly all of our TVs are showing the same picture. It's God, and he's going, guys, I'm real, right? Be good. Everybody's going to be happy. That's all I want. Just that one thing. Too much to ask for?
Apparently. Rich, and outside of, I'd like to try and answer Greg's question about experiencing that feeling that there's an essence within you, goes without saying in relationship with God as a people of faith. That would be obviously, a done deal, as far as I know, as far as I remember. But prior, is there any time in your life when you didn't have a belief in God, but there was a sense that there was something there? I know, Rich, I think there was with you.
Yeah, so for me, see, I my involvement with the church, I was quite young, so it's hard to sort of pick those two things apart. But the way I would talk about it now is quite interesting. One of the frameworks that have really helped me process where I'm at now is found in Father Richard Rohr's book, Falling Upward. And he talks about these two halves of your life. The first half of your life, you do need a lot of structure. You need a lot of being told this is what you should do. This is what you should believe. This is the truth from external, because this is what sort of constructs your ego and your sense of self. But there comes a point when you can possibly transition to the second half of your life where the certainties actually disappear and ambiguity, openness enters, and instead of having the right answer, you start having the right relationship to the world rather than the right knowledge of the world. So for me, that's my experience of spirituality. When I was younger, 100% knew all of this stuff. I knew far more at 25 than I do now. I can tell you that. In a sense, I was very, very sort of certain of it all. So that said, that's me processing it. So where I'm at now, I'd answer the question very differently. Yes, have I experienced the feeling there was an essence within you that was not from your mind or your body? I would say yes, but I'm saying that yes in the context of very much talking about the nature of consciousness in particular. I do think that there is enough evidence to show that there is a non-physical part of human consciousness. Part of it comes from, I understand, part of my religious upbringing, training, and definite experiences and the meaning I've assigned to those experiences. I do that. But then I start looking elsewhere, and one of the things that's really intrigued me lately is near-death experiences. And I'll put this out there because growing up, near-death experiences was something you'd read in the occult section of the library. In fact, I read probably every single book in that sort of occult section of every library that I went to school in. The occult section was, occult religion, experiences, spirituality, all of that was there. I was very interested from young. Near-death experiences were, maybe 15 years ago, hokum, debunked, forget it. There's been a whole wave of new investigations into near-death experiences. And I'll put a link to one of the papers I found quite interesting. There's more than this. But it talks about some of the sort of lines of evidence pointing toward, if not a definite indicator that there's something non-physical to human consciousness, there's a lot of questions that definitely need to be answered, especially through the very simplistic answer that everything in the consciousness is just a function of the brain. Oh, look, it's probably still a bit controversial, but I really think the thinkers who come down on an absolute hard line saying consciousness is a function of brain function are just they're completely wrong. There's so much scientific evidence pointing towards and just logical reasoning that would suggest otherwise. But I'll put the thing there. Some of the things that are really interesting with near-death experiences. Two of the things that stood out to me is that when we examine all our things that we understand consciousness to be, person having near-death experiences, having vivid experience, formation of memory, formation of knowledge that should not be possible in those states. So there's something that would say we just don't understand that well enough. But then you look at some of the accounts of people coming back from a near-death experience, comatose, brain function, zero. They literally measure it, no brain function, comatose. And ask them what happened, and they can explain 100% accurately what happened in the room, what happened next door, what happened on the roof. Like these are validated experiences that have been investigated, and no one doubts that is what happened.
Wow.
Now we need to wrestle over what does that mean. So to me, there's like a lot of what we just flippantly say, it's just brain function, it's just your imagination, that's what consciousness is. I think we're falling so far short of being able to explain the evidence at hand that it puts a non-physical component to human experience back on the table as far as I'm concerned. But if nothing else, we need to think a bit more deeply than the pat answers that I've heard from the likes of Hitchens and Dawkins and those very shallow thinkers out there, like those people.
How dare you? Wash your mouth out.
Look, before anyone else jumps in, can I take my leave of absence? I've got to go.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Jace, nice to see you again. And Luke, Richard, Pete, thank you all. And hopefully we'll catch up next week.
Yep, mate, that'd be great. Thanks again, Suresh. Take care, mate.
Thanks.
Love to the
Yes,
family.
yes,
Just departing to a better place.
Yes. Greg has put another post on. There is no answer outside yourself. There is no answer. What was the question? That's what I want to know. Before we say, look, I mean that, no, I kind of get that.
I've spotted something that all of the believers have in common, Pete, which I don't have, and that's people who have had an association with God have very smooth foreheads compared to mine. I don't know what's going on there.
It's part of
mate,
it.
I
get it.
have
It's part of it.
that makes
Yeah.
no-
It's like divine Botox.
divine Botox. Wow, it could be onto a winner there. Luke, so we are asking sorry, hang on a minute. What was that?
Oh, that
that's
was
the
just me putting up
report.
that
Yeah.
near-death experience report.
Fenton says a majority of Craig Keener's book on NDES has been debunked thoroughly. Also, look, it's
near-death experiences.
yeah, it's an interesting, a very interesting subject. I've read quite a bit about it, like most of us have over time, to try and I'm left with the question. Okay, what if it is? And you poised it at the end, Richard, saying what it could mean if we could conclusively say yes, there is a near-death experience. What would be the benefit of that actually happening? What if we discovered conclusively that that's it? There is things that happen after you die. Are you referring particularly to people who have that experience and then come back? Obviously, that not die.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Near-death experience doesn't, I would agree with a lot of the critics of the conclusions, which is it's near death. The dudes aren't dead because death is a one-way street.
Yeah.
Like the definition of death is you can't come back. So this is not proving that there's an afterlife. But particularly for me, what I've read about, the studies and the meta studies on the out-of-body experience component of near-death experiences, my personal opinion, I haven't heard or seen anything rational that would explain that without resorting to some sort of non-physical component of human consciousness. At the very least, a lot of the lay explanations of consciousness are completely blown out of the water by these things. The flippant, consciousness is nothing but brain functions. The kind of nonsense you do hear from the new atheist crew is just untenable. The evidence, scientific empirical evidence, points to something far more rich that needs to be explained. So I think there's a bit of a frontier there.
That's why I hate the word
I don't want to be
atheism.
argumentative, Rich, but I mean, I do read a lot about this stuff, and frankly, I would love to have citations on that, because I don't know of any of scientific papers that talk about what you're talking about. I take a rational position on it, and I do get that, consciousness, it depends where you're coming from. Like, you're coming at it from a different angle to me. For me,
sure.
The rational explanation is, when I'm dying, I've got cortisol, I've got adrenaline, I've got serotonin and dopamine coursing through my brain, causing things that don't normally happen to happen. My brain is malfunctioning because it could be my blood oxygen levels have changed or whatever else. And so as I'm on my way out, my brain's malfunctioning. So it's going to do a lot of things that I don't normally expect it to do. So I guess I'm just taking like what I consider to be a scientific position on that, rather than, once again, I think giving it an external attribution. So I'm not saying like objectively that you're wrong. I just want to see more evidence.
Yeah, look, yeah. I'll send you. I'll put the link to it's a bit of a report, not a study, that gathers. It's 6 years old now. Gathers a lot of these studies. These are empirical. These aren't religious studies. These are mainstream studies.
I'm looking forward to it.
But it's for me, the telling case is a couple of things. The conclusions were our current, I would say, lay or common understanding of brain function is challenged very much by the fact that you can form memories, vivid accounts of memories in states where we think the brain isn't functioning. So there's not even cortisol, all of that stuff. At certain experiences, these things should not happen. So we need to think more deeply about what brains are. But out-of-body experiences of people reporting accurately conversations in rooms beside themselves, like And they've gone through and discounted a lot of sort of anecdotal evidence. They've whittled it down to certain cases that they're like, we are as certain as we can be that this thing actually happened. I'm like, there's an explanatory gap there. And there's a few things
I'm
that are
happy to
quite
do my
interesting.
homework. You send me that.
Yeah, no,
I will
I'll be
report
interested to
back
see
in
what
next week.
you look, because I do know I am plagued by confirmation bias on this one.
I
We
think
all
I've
are.
heard too many. I've heard too many alien abduction stories in my life to with incredible detail and stuff to not think that perhaps something else is happening there. But I'm open, and something you said, which I want to put my hand up and say, I am not a closed-minded atheist like so many of them are.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I'm interested in this. Look at this, whatever. I'm interested in the truth. I don't give a stuff who it is. That's why I hate calling myself an atheist, because then people put you in a little box of
Yeah.
people who are
But see,
all like-minded. We all think the same. There's nothing.
the
There's
very
nothing
definition
compared.
of science is that science is not about immutable fact. Science is a
No.
process where, as we discover new things, the facts change. And that's a
That's
good
so
thing,
good,
not a
mate.
bad thing. A wise man will always change his position based on new evidence.
Yes, that's right. Luke, you're still with us, mate. I appreciate you staying.
Wake up, Luke.
You've been left out of it.
I'm waiting for the invite to talk. I'm just happy to let I don't want to
Well,
steamroll. So
Here it is, brother. This is your moment to shine in the sun. Quick, get into the question that we're asking about, Greg. But before we do that, do you have any experience or knowledge through what you do in after-death experience or near-death experiences, rather?
No. I've done no research on it. I mean, I've heard stories and things like that. And I've chatted with Rich about some of these papers and things, but I haven't read them myself. It's not really been an area that I've been particularly drawn to. When you first become a Christian, or when I first became a Christian, and I was very much in the Kurong bubble where it's like 90 seconds in hell and 5 minutes in heaven, and like there's all these sort of different books and stories that sort of come out that I thought were great at the time, but now it's it's maybe a few question marks. Although I do believe it wouldn't surprise me. I guess that's the thing for me, and I've been I need to get a pen and paper like you do, Pete. Because there's a couple of bits that I just want to briefly touch on. So the first one with that is around the supernatural side of things. There is so much in this world that we don't understand. Yeah, we're talking specifically around near-death experiences and things like this, but it goes far beyond that. There are anecdotal, granted, but also scientific studies done where there are just unexplained phenomena that we just can't really get to the bottom of. We just don't understand. But there's just such a wealth of them that for me, I'm comfortable with the uncertainty of saying, I don't know. But it seems like there's more going on behind the scenes. I wouldn't put a theology around it. I wouldn't put an explanation around it, simply because I don't have enough information or understanding to even.
You wouldn't automatically attribute that to God and the supernatural. If you don't know the answer, it remains an unanswered question rather than attributing it to the supernatural, right?
Totally. Yeah. We get yeah. I think that's a trap. We can paint ourselves into a corner there when we start going, oh, well, that's just God, or that's just this, or that means this, because all of a sudden now you're playing with the character of God, you're playing with the way God operates in the world, and it might work in that particular situation, but then someone's just got to go, oh, so that means this, that God operates like this because there was this other story, serious, and all of a sudden now you're in trouble. I think we need to, there's a thing in our modern world, I guess, where we feel like we have to have the answers, especially in the church space. We kind of have to be like, well, this is what it means, but we don't. And I resonate with what Rich said earlier about he knew all the answers when he was 25, and he knows far less now. And I'm exactly the same. we need to be
Yeah.
comfortable saying, I don't know. Which I guess follows into my next point, which was Pete mentioned about knowing, this sense of knowing, and that with rationality or with faith, that unless we know for certain, then it's not worth exploring. But at the same time, that we live our lives every day, and there are thousands of things we don't know. Even in the realm of science, we've touched on quantum things and this and that. There's so much we don't know. In the realm of medicine, we have medications that we've done billions and billions and billions of dollars of research on, and they say we know this works. We have no idea how. There is, and I'm not saying that's a supernatural thing that it's working. But what I'm saying is the idea of knowing being a prerequisite to anything being taken seriously. We don't actually believe that. We don't live our lives like that. So it's for us to apply that to a faith perspective isn't totally irrational. It may not be something that everyone chooses to do, but I don't think it's an irrational thing, because we have to have a comfort level with things that we don't know. And if we're talking about something like God, I believe that the second that we can say we know how God operates, we know everything about God, we're not talking about God anymore. It cannot be God. We cannot be. For something to be God, it has to be outside our fully understanding. It doesn't mean we can't think about it, but it means that we can't ever fully grasp God, and we need to be okay with that. The other thing, sorry, this is a bit of a rapid fire, just wanting to touch back on Fenton's comments around the Alcoholics Anonymous success rate. And I'd like to read that book. And so I
You've
say
been hanging on to stuff for ages, mate.
I
Sorry
have.
about that.
I have. No, that's all right. That's all right. Just because he's mentioned it a couple of times, I wanted to touch on it quickly. I will have to read this. So I say this with all due respect and with open acknowledgement that I haven't read the book that he's talking about. But I think but I do have firsthand knowledge of the Narcotics Anonymous program. I've been to many, many meetings. I know the 12-step program in great detail. Whilst it is what Fenton would call a spiritual program or a spiritual solution, it's certainly not a religious one. And it is inherently practical. It is not about, pray this away. It's not that at all. There is, for anyone who has any understanding around the 12-step, the Alcoholics Anonymous and all the other anonymous programs, it is very much a comprehensive program designed to practically change the way you're living your life in order to defeat addiction. Those sort of success rates, talking about a tested 5 to 8% success rate, we're talking about a chronically relapsing disease. We have to talk about what is a success rate is that someone who never ever relapses? Well, that's going to be extremely low anyway. And so it'd be interesting to understand this, but also the comparison with a secular method is interesting because I'd have to read the book again, but Alcoholics Anonymous, I would imagine, would be far and away the most popular. So it's going to have a skewed outcome there because there are going to be a significantly larger number of people attending that program than there would potentially some of these other smaller programs with a higher success rate. So it's just the numbers are going to be skewed there. I'm not saying that spiritual solution is better than a secular solution. At the end of the day, whatever solution works is the best solution. I don't care whether you use a God of your own understanding or whether you use a purely scientific backed thing. Whatever works for these people. That's important. But I love Fenton's engagement. I think that's awesome, and I will read that book. And then lastly, have I experienced the feeling that there is an essence within you that's not from my mind or my body? Absolutely. Actually, all the time.
Yeah.
Which I guess is not a surprise. That's going to be expected. Mm-hmm. Can I understand it? Not really. Can I give a theology around it? Little bits, but nothing that's going to be a concrete proof. But I have experienced it.
You take a medication to help with it?
Oh, yeah. I want the voices to go away, but there's a lot of them there. That's a problem.
Does one of them sound like your wife?
That's the one I won't go away. But it's the only one that speaks sense. That's the thing.
And that's not supernatural. That's physical.
Sure, that was a good save, mate. Good save.
Ooh,
You were going down with this.
She's just entered the room. That's why I had to pivot pretty quickly on that.
You were going down with the ship.
Can
and
I
you
just
plugged
add
the hole
one
and you
thing,
backed
guys?
up.
And I think this will actually, well, it won't make you laugh, but it will make you realize that for a non-believer like me, there's actually still questions, right? As resolute as I am about the rationality and empiricism and all of that kind of thing, I very often think of the universe, that we are the universe experiencing itself. I've got no reason for that, no rational thought behind that. Maybe that's what other people attribute to God. Maybe that's what people attribute to Mother Earth or whatever else you want to call it. But I've often thought, we don't understand the universe. We don't know what we are. Well, I don't know what we are. I don't know why I'm here. But if there is an explanation and it's bigger than me, then maybe that explanation is that the universe, God, is a genuine thing that I should be believing in. But I keep coming back to that one thing, that it doesn't matter what I believe in, as long as I'm a decent human being and as long as I do the right thing by other people. And if that is a lesson that God would want me to learn, then that is a lesson that I've learned. And I don't know how much more I can do without taking that extra step into the faith world.
Right. I think that's the very reason why Rich and I aren't evangelizing to you, mate, because we've sort of reached that space within ourselves. And I've said this on this podcast a few times, how our belief functions, I think, matters more than the content of our beliefs, because you can believe the right things and break that first commandment that we've been talking about, the only command, the don't be a dick commandment, and realistically have zero impact on the world around you. And we see this with escapist theology, this idea that, and this actually links back to the last thing I wanted to talk about, which was in response to Jace, when Jace was saying about when you were saying with the MS diagnosis, how that pushed you into the now, wanting to take care of your body now, wanting to be a good friend now, enjoy this time rather than kind of hand it off to one day. That's beautiful. I think that should exactly be the theology of I think that should be that's the Christian message as well. For me, the escapist theology of, well, what this whole thing is about is going to heaven one day when we die. That means that we don't have to do anything in this world. Don't worry about the climate or the environment. Don't worry about your relationships. Don't worry about any of this sort of stuff. Don't worry about engaging in actual sociological matters or political matters or any of this sort of stuff where we can actually make the world a better place, because it's all going to be cactus and God's going to come rescue it one day, but we get to go to heaven, and that's the main thing. So we just got to hold on until then. That's the opposite of what I believe Jesus is talking about.
Well, I would have thought, if you were a Christian, you would have a very strong belief that if God put this here for us, we have no right to abuse it or to pollute it or to damage it. If this is God's earth, as a Christian, you should be the biggest advocate for doing the right thing.
Absolutely. And this is where this theology gets distorted. I call it harmful theology. I didn't coin that. That's just two words I put together and they make a lot of sense. But it's very, very harmful theology, because there's zero impact in the world around you today. And it's all about what's going to happen one day. And when you're talking about you're going to take care of your body, well, if someone who was a believer in God, they should be saying the same thing. Sure, you can pray and you can surrender and all that sort of stuff. You still should take care of your body. You still should seek out cutting edge medication. You still should lean into all of the science and the medication, the medical resources available to us on this earth right now. It's not one or the other, but I get the confusion because a lot of people do that, and it's a sad thing. But yeah,
I think you said an interesting thing there, which kind of felt the hairs at the back of my neck stand up, Luke, because you said something which you haven't said for a while. You said it, not a Christian thing. You were talking about, it was only a couple of seconds ago, specifically fill me in if you can on what you were talking about, where you said it's not a Christian thing, because that lays claim that the only people who are going to be kind and good and nice and gentle is a Christian philosophy, and it's not. It is a shared view of humanity throughout the world, regardless of the religions. And I think to try and own that as a Christian thing, I think is very dangerous, and it's simply not true. And it's a false claim to be able to claim that the Christian thing is somehow better than other. Do you know?
Oh
what I
no,
mean?
that's not what I was. Yeah, I know what you're. It's from when I was saying about choosing to engage in the world and you know, basically be kind, make the world a better place, love, bring heaven to earth, effectively. And when I said it's not Christian to have a theology of someday and to just leave all that. In saying that, though, I wasn't saying that's an exclusive Christian capacity or even invention. It was more the sense of the people I'm talking about, and I speak about my family. Yeah, I love the church. I love Christians. That's why I do this, because I want to see it done in a way that's, I guess, truer to the way Jesus was. So when I say stuff like that, yeah, it is calling out what it should be to be a practicing Christian, but it's not saying that this is an exclusive Christian claim. It's not. No. You know, you can be a Buddhist and live like that. Muslim live
it's
like
not
that.
a Christian thing to say, if you have a longer table, don't build a fence, put out more chairs.
Exactly right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that'll preach.
Okay. It must be some intrinsic link between myself and my brother, because we both wrote down exactly the same time. It's okay to say we don't know. And I think they're three of the most powerful words in the English language, which kind of, you could argue that it's not the three most powerful words, because it's actually with the shortened word of the do not. So it's actually 4 words, but I'll say 3 to cover. I think it's 3 of the most powerful. It's a very humbling thing to be able to say we don't hear it enough. So I agree with you 100%.
It's wisdom.
Greg. It's okay to say we don't know, because we don't. In fact, we will never be at a place in the human race where we say we now know everything. That is just a simple impossibility. Fenton, I spent 5 years as an Alcoholics Anonymous member. Did the steps with many men. I started young people's groups in my area and saw the rates myself. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
Again, and I figured that Fenton would have firsthand experience.
Yeah.
So and that's why I said, with those comments, they were just. It certainly wasn't refuting what Fenton was saying. I think it was more just my own thoughts on it, but I believe Fenton knows what he's talking about.
Well, you've certainly given power to the belief in that, Fenton, if you've gone through the experience yourself. Also follows it up saying it's out of a desire to have more people. Oh, what happened to the screen?
Save more people.
Oh, sorry, it moved because Rich opened it up there and it kind of jumped across it. It's out of a desire to save more people. Yeah, that I started researching it. So
it's amazing. Whatever works, that's the best thing.
We were being funny a little while ago at 23 minutes past 9. So Frank put in, ha. Well done. Thank you, Frank. Nice to see you're still awake. Fenton again said, respect the earth God gave us. It's the art you were responding to.
The part.
He's corrected himself, saying he's the part you're responding to. Yeah, thank you. Fantastic response from people. Look, we've just scratched the surface when it comes to the width and the breadth and depth of spiritual stuff. Just going into it today was like, wow, it just impacts and infiltrates everyone's lives on so many different levels. And Jason said something which to me is what riles me a lot about people who take advantage of the gullible and the weak, and by claiming to be able to contact your parents and giving people false hope that Auntie really did love you. She just forgot to tell you, but she's here now and she says she really does love you, and she saw your recital and it was just amazing. And I mean, I would like to believe that there are maybe some people who are genuine and can actually do it, or the art was something real, but now it's been infiltrated by charlatans who are doing it purely to make money. Either way, it's obvious to me that those kind of people are, they're taking the piss, really. They really are. They're using it to make money.
There's a famous American who was a magician at one stage, James Randi. Some of you guys might know that name.
James Randi,
who has a
very well.
standing $1 million offer to say,
Yes.
come and prove to me that you can do something miraculous. Doesn't matter what it is, just prove that
Yep.
you can do something miraculous and I'll give
Yep.
you the $1 million.
Yep.
No one's ever taken that money.
He does it live on TV, giving people the opportunity to show that they are, you know. And I think it was even him who exposed Uri Geller with the spoon bending, and how he actually did it. He did it on the Don Lane show years ago, and how he bent the key. And as it turns out, Don Lane went off his face and threw him off the show, but that's because he was being exposed and correct. But yeah, look, it's I don't. It's probably even worthwhile following it up if he wanted to attack it again next week, because it is just, there's so much. And on the flip side, something else that I unearthed today, of course, was that where did I put it on my screen here? I've just switched screens. I'm talking about homeopathy, energetic healing on all planes. Now, that's not a spiritual thing per se, but what it is designed to do is to fix your spiritual condition, your emotional and physical condition. And for those people who don't know what homeopathy is, it's this bizarre concept that the more you lessen and weaken I guess, I'm not sure what they actually call it. It's not a medicine per se, but to give you an example, they believe that if you put one drop of something that can help you in a swimming pool size amount of water, that will be more impactful than if you actually took it direct out of it's crazy and it's bizarre. The other one is healing crystals, of course, which is natural mineral formations. Again, not spiritual based, but they are designed to help your spiritual well-being. So there's another whole opposite, if you like, on coming at it from another direction about the things that we can do or that we're told will fix up our spirit. Now, I'm not sure where we go with this, because there's just so much to talk about. Rich put a couple of things on today, which I had a look at, Rich, which was can someone believe in both science and the supernatural? I think that's a great question. What do you think, guys?
Yes, I do. So therefore, that's evidence. Can.
So therefore, that is an actual true statement. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice
Problem
one.
solved.
like it.
What's
Proven.
next?
That's absolutely
That's
100%
just you, Luke. It's
proven.
anecdotal.
Easy. You're true. Fair
So
enough.
yes, it is possible. It's funny when I think about that. What do you mean by science? What do you mean by supernatural? What do you mean by believe? And that's a whole semester's worth of really picking apart. But I say yes, if you rightly define the words science, believe, and supernatural. And there's a way of defining all of those that turns it all into nonsense. But for me, I would say yes, I do, because science, as Jay said, is you can never be free of a worldview philosophy, but as much as possible, you're chasing down the evidence wherever it takes you. That's how I broadly define science. Yes, supernatural, a non-material aspect to the universe. Yes, I don't think science and a non-physical component to the universe are necessarily at odds unless you start introducing a ideological element to science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
You cannot prove using the scientific method that there is nothing. There's no non-physical existence. It's a pre-commitment that you bring to such a thing. So I think having a bit of humility in that space allows me to believe both. but the overarching thing is a rational pursuit, is the meaning I immediately form, like I have an experience or I encounter something or I read something, I immediately form a meaning around that. What I want to do is not stop there and camp. I want to pursue that. I want to see if there's evidence. I want to think deeply. I want to consult. I want to phone up Jason and say, Jace, what do you reckon? Because he's going to give me some things that I'm not going to think about. And so I want to chase it down. And that's what I mean about, my conclusions may change, but at the moment I can see both things being chased down in a rational manner. I don't want to foreclose on either.
To lighten up the evening a little bit, what about poltergeists? Does anyone?
Can I tell you a story?
Is it scary?
It's a poltergeist story.
Well, let's turn the lights down and put some spooky music on.
So,
just before you do that, I don't know any more about poltergeists than I do. I've watched the same kind of shows that look out for ghosts, and there's never been any evidence. But well done, Luke. But I give you the big tip. If there was a thought of a poltergeist in my house, I'd be out the front door faster than he. Seriously, go on.
So poltergeist is the particular spirit that has kinetic impact on the world. They can move stuff. Okay.
Yes.
I'm just going to give you an account of an experience I had, and I'm not assigning any meaning to it at all. I refuse to, because it's too hard. I was in a Pentecostal church growing up, and so this was full-on Pentecostal, old school Pentecostal. Like, you watch the movies, that's the church. It was, it's fun to be in a part of a church like that. Anyway,
yes.
Part of the thing is, I had a bottle of anointing oil sitting on top of the microwave in the kitchen, because you've got to have that sucker handy, because if anybody needs to be, prayed for healing, grab the oil, smear on their forehead. Definitely, that was something right in there.
Every first aid kit should have one.
It should. So I had that sitting on the microwave. I walked into the room, and as I was standing there just looking at the kitchen, the bottle flew off the microwave, hit the wall, and smashed against the wall. And no one was in the room. So I saw that with my eyes, and I'm like, okay, I refuse to think about that anymore, cleaned it up, and promptly refused to think anymore about it. But sounds crazy. Who knows?
Can I tell a story that is loosely associated with your story?
Yes, I want to hear your story. Please tell me.
Did you throw the oil?
That was me. And if it involves a microwave oven, I'm not interested.
I used to host a TV show called Geek Speak, and it was all about IT and technology and internet and all this kind of thing. Well, one of the episodes that we did involved a ghost chasing group of people who were based in Perth, and they would, one of the guys drove a hearse, put it that way. They would drive all over the state, go to the most haunted places, and then they had all this equipment that could pick up electromagnetic signals, and it was, they were full on. So we went and we did this episode at the Greenfields Hotel, which is way out in the outback, like the old Northam Hotel. It's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in Australia. So what we did is we were there after dark, and we took out all the instruments. We were recording things, looking for signals. We had a medium with us called Rebecca Millman, who's quite known around the place as well. And then they dared me to spend half an hour by myself in the darkest, most haunted room with an infrared camera filming what was going on.
Nope.
Well, the only thing that happened is I got bored shitless. I was sat there, nothing happened. I wanted to make something happen just so I could be entertained. But then they said, or Rebecca said to me, but if you're a disbeliever, if you don't believe in this stuff, they're not going to come and see you. And I went, well, that's a very convenient argument, isn't it? Why don't I have one of these kinetic poltergeists come along and slam the door a couple of times, or maybe unfold the bed so that it looks comfortable for me to sleep in? Nothing like that happened. And I was
Yeah.
extremely disappointed.
I bet.
Reader's Digest version.
I can tell you a similar story. That actually something did happen, and it might seem bizarre to you, Jace. It won't seem quite as strange, I don't think, to Rich and Luke. But back when I was a Christian man and I was full of power, my goodness gracious me, I had Jesus on my side and I was indestructible. Demons and stuff like that didn't scare me at all because I had the blood of Jesus. Anyway, I was at the shopping centre in Dog Swamp, and it was just I think it was a closed shopping centre if I remember. And I went there and I'm walking around, I'm looking at stuff, which is really weird in itself because I don't shop for clothes. And there was a woman there, and she caught my eye and I looked over, and I just shivers went down my spine because she just looked and I went, whoa, she's evil. There's something just horrible about her. And straight away I realized that and this is what I was thinking at the time, please don't put any labels, but I figured that she was probably a Satanist or whatever, but she knew who I was and I knew who she was. And so there was this kind of dance, if you like, of moving around the aisles and me keeping away from her because I thought something was really weird was going on. Scared the hell out of me, but I was powerful and strong. And
well,
anyway,
that's where Satan's going to come for you, Pete, in a menswear store.
That's it. That's what I was thinking, in the change rooms even. Oh, no, that's another person. Sorry. But she came past, I'd lost sight of her. There's other people there. And she came past and she just brushed my shoulder ever so lightly and went past. And I don't know what happened, but it was just all over. I cannot explain what happened. I could not walk. I couldn't talk. I just completely fell apart, like something had just bang whacked me, and I have no idea what it was. It's even more weird now because I don't believe in that, but that was a supernatural experience as far as I'm aware at the time. It just
your different interpretation. She thought you were trying to pick her up.
Yeah, is that what it was? She did slap me outside in the car park, so I'm not sure whether that's it.
Did you guys,
No.
have you guys ever heard of Let Jesus Take the Wheel Day?
What? No.
No? There was this big thing about 2 years ago. There was videos all over the internet, and basically a lot of Christians were promoting this idea of a day called Let Jesus Take the Wheel. And apparently what was going to happen is at lunchtime on that day, every good Christian, whether, if they were driving, was going to take their hands off the steering wheel and let Jesus drive the car. I don't know whatever came of it.
I can
I don't know
guess.
if
Is this real?
an accident that day,
Jace,
but
is that real?
maybe, just maybe, the only people that got away with it were in Teslas that had auto drive,
Yeah,
Let Jesus take the wheel. Here's the guy who programmed up the yeah, you got it wrong.
Your Mexican chauffeur.
That's right.
I literally had this image of Jesus, somewhere in some other realm, just going like this.
Well, I can give you.
I've got a painting of Jesus leaning over the driver and holding the steering wheel for you.
Yeah. Well, no, Jesus would never break the law, and I can sure as hell guarantee he never had a license. So this is where this whole story. Jesus did not drive the car. I'm back to our notes from Frank. Frank saying it's a placebo effect. My doctor wanted me. I'm talking about homeopathy. My doctor wanted to give me homeopathic medicine, and I just laughed and left and went to another doctor. That's a good move, Frank. It is an absolute rot. Great movie. Oh, they're here.
Oh, Poltergeist.
Oh, that was, oh my God. Beetlejuice from Fenton. Great film.
Oh, you said it 3 times.
Let's
We're done now.
No, he didn't.
Fenton.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
Almost.
Oh,
The
yes.
sequel's coming out.
You're not allowed to say it 3 times, are you?
Yeah.
Well, he wrote it, Fenton. Good on you.
Say it again, so you said it 4 times.
Jesus Take the Wheel Day was an insurance scam, I bet. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. The local panel beaters was like, yes.
It was
Yeah.
in
Between Frank Fenton and Greg, we've had a very entertaining night. Look, it's 10 to 10. Your call, guys. If you've had enough where you want to keep going, I don't care. People are listening and whatever. I mean, I'm happy to go to 10 if you want. Or
Well, just to wrap up that whole little discussion about our stories, I found it interesting because I told you the story without telling you what I thought. The actual facts of the case was a broken bottle of anointing oil. But memory is weird. What did I remember? What did I conclude? Did the thing just roll off and I caught it out the corner of my eye? So
yeah, right.
I think having a healthy skepticism, even against your own experiences,
Of
is a
course.
good thing. And
Rich,
so, I tell that story, but
are you
there's a lot of
sure
things that could explain it.
Are you sure that like your memory is just a bit fuzzy, that you didn't break the bottle and then you told your mum, a poltergeist did it, and now that's the story that you're sticking with?
That's literally it would be my wife, because it was when we early got first married, and that's most likely the correct interpretation of what actually happened. But yeah, I think I like these stories because they're real events, but they're
The simplest
highlighted.
explanation
You
is
need
usually
to
okay.
talk about and get external measures on the initial meaning you want to assign to them, and that's the scientific process. Chase
So
down
Richard
the meaning and evidence.
Richard and Luke, after my story, what do you think happened?
Whew. There's two parts of me. Part of me is like, it fits so well with the narrative. And I won't foreclose on the idea of a supernatural kind of dynamic there. For me, supernatural is very much about the interaction between two people. But then, to confound that whole thing is the idea of self-hypnosis as well, and the built-up of expectation could have been there. I don't know.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Yep,
either. I'm on my own journey with what I understand, and I think this could be good for another podcast. The whole idea of Satan and the demonic. For as long as I can remember as a Christian, for me, Satan has been not the cliched little guy in the red suit and the pitchfork, but a being, like an ontological being, like an entity, and then demons obviously is like a subset of that, I guess.
It's homeboys, yeah.
Yes, homeboys. But I guess I've developed in thinking around that sort of stuff. I still very much believe in evil. I believe in there is something
very
that
biblical.
we could label satanic, we could label demonic. As to what that is, I don't know if it's an ontological thing. I think it could just be that part of us that is the opposite. Like darkness isn't a thing, but it's the absence of light. That type of idea. But I don't want to get into it now because it's a whole other topic.
I'm just going to say,
I guess
maybe that's a great idea for another podcast. Is this whole thing about people have, well, I assume most people have an inner monologue where you talk to yourself. Some people don't, I've heard, and some people have more than one. And that's not about voices. That's just the normal experience that people have. Now, for me, I think sometimes I've got a voice of rationality and reason and a voice of emotion and rage and the lower instincts that we have as a human being. And that would probably be a good discussion to have as well around what is the motivation behind those. Are they the lizard brain versus the modern brain, or is that evil versus good? Or I don't know. That's an interesting one.
It's something very common in religion, and I will only talk about Christianity because that's my experience. But certainly, to me, it was a constant dialogue because you're confronted constantly with thoughts of guilt and sin and the repercussions and the barriers and the confines and all of these. To me, I don't know what it's like for you guys, but once you've been indoctrinated into that Pentecostal church deal for a long time, it changes the way you think about everything. And it's for me, it was a constant. I was never just sitting there just going, everything seems really cool. There's always, now that also fits in perfectly with my personality and with my emotional disorders, like, catastrophizing everything. So when you're a person who does that, to be involved in something which is constantly telling you that you're a failure, or you're full of sin, or you're totally dependent on God, and without God you're a nothing, that is seriously messes with your brain big time. It really is difficult to navigate that kind of landscape. It's not an easy, cool, relaxing thing.
Person.
Sorry?
Well, that's where religion is not making you a better person.
Oh, correct.
I think I've mentioned before that I fully support it when religion makes you a better person. You do better things. You feel better. You're better to your family and your friends and your colleagues and everything. That's great. But when it starts making you feel guilt and it affects your mental state, that's when religion is destructive and corrosive and all of the things that we don't want.
Yeah. Think of all the things think about all the things we could be talking about every Wednesday night that would actually benefit the world. Now, we might be seen as benefiting Fenton and Greg and Frank and that to a level of entertainment. But really, I mean, I personally, and I love Christopher Hitchens' book, How Religion Poisons Everything, because I think it does poison everything right to the core, everything, not just part of things, but I think it actually poisons everything. I don't think it's
but religion's not God, Pete.
At all. What do you mean?
It's true. It's exactly very true.
Religion is the stuff. God,
of course,
is the thing.
Yeah,
and they're entirely different matters.
The problem is, of course, that because no one's ever heard from God, we make up our own shit, and we've done a really, really, really bad job of it. You know,
I don't know. That's one story that's been around for 2,000 years.
Yeah. What is the story, by the way? Can we break it down to 10 paragraphs, or?
Yeah, it's exactly the same story as Star Wars.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, black and white, good over evil. Yeah,
I thought it was Harry Potter, actually, but
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, I think Harry Potter somehow should be inserted into a Star Wars film. I think that would be something amazing.
Make that happen.
Well, Godzilla came up against King Kong, so anything's possible, mate.
Godzilla.
And King.
It's a sign.
The King of the Jews.
It's a sign.
And Godzilla. Well, clearly, I think that's a natural segue into stopping this nonsense.
I'm sorry, guys. I apologize.
That was great.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay. Are we done?
I hope so.
I see it's different for me. You guys have got to do some degree of work tomorrow, apparently. But actually, no. Richard's the only one here who has a job.
Yeah.
Fenton.
Yeah, I'm retired. I don't care.
Yeah, you're way too young to read. I'm in California, and I'm time traveling through chat. Love the discussion, and have been telling folks to check it out. God love you, Fenton.
Legend Fenton.
California. Wow.
Love Kelly.
Okay, I wonder if he's near Silicon Valley or more of the.
Where you all at, Fenton?
That's the word.
Certainly not in Alabama. I think that's where coming from.
Yo, you're talking right, boy.
Great. No, we've just lost all Fenton and his mates because we've insulted their country.
Just plunge.
Thank you so much.
Seriously, California is one of my favorite places to visit. I've been there a few times with the family, done road trips. My favorite place that I've ever been is Yosemite National Park. Just the yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, Big
So
Sur.
the one that
Big
just
Sur.
happened, Fenton.
That's where Yellow Springs is, isn't it? The national park. Yellow.
No, that's Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh,
two
Yellowstone
different
National.
ones.
That's where Yogi Bear comes from.
Right.
Yep.
He's
Empirically
smarter than
proven.
the average baraboo. Close to the
Gus
Come on,
Fenton say
boo-boo.
close to the Big Sur slide.
What is the Sir
Yeah.
slide?
I've driven the Big Sur
Mm.
in an
Oh,
RV,
What is, in what?
in a
It's like
massive
National Lampoon's
RV.
Vacation.
It actually was. It was
What is
terrifying.
Sir slide? In educate me, Sir slide.
The Big Sur is like the coastline, up the California
Up-
coastline, and it's incredible. A huge drop off to the ocean, and there's rocks and the roads are really thin. So I'm driving this massive RV in a on very, very tight roads around tight curves.
I've seen it in many films.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Mm.
We had a major landslide recently. Well, that is not the kind of place you want to have a landslide. You are living on a fault line after all, so that's to be expected, I guess.
Big landslide. It must be medium, sir, now.
Boom.
How can we start and
Does that mean
end
it's time
on a
to go?
joke built on the word medium? That's incredible.
Or is it
Should we
median?
finish up, or should I just see myself out?
That was just a thing of beauty. So I
Yeah.
do believe in something more than human intelligence after that one. That's for sure.
The natural bookend.
So look, I feel, as I said before, we haven't even. I mean, it's not the kind of thing you can get into and get to some point where you go, I think we've covered this pretty well, because it is just. It is. We didn't talk about any of the what, have we ever been in a seance? Have we ever tried a Ouija board? I know that I used to live with a guy who used to conjure up Satan. He believed into his bedroom every night. To which I said, I'm not going to your bedroom for lots of reasons.
Why would you want to do that?
I don't know, right?
It's just, it's not like Walt Disney. I can understand that.
Yeah,
look,
but it wasn't Satan. It wasn't Satan. It was Saturn in the bedroom. Saturn.
That makes sense.
satin sheets.
Yeah.
No.
They're my Satan
planet.
sheets.
I know a girl who thinks that Santa is Satan. She is gorgeous, but no thanks. I was almost poetic there, Frank. Frank, where are you from? Quickly. I don't think you've told us that before. I know Fenton's from California. Eh? We've had someone from, was it Brussels?
Mhm.
I believe.
Amsterdam?
And, was it Amsterdam? Somewhere around there, by the look of all the dope smoke bellowing out of it. Maybe that was Frank, Belgium.
Belgium.
Yeah. No, I think Frank's told us that before. So, well, from all of us here in beautiful downtown sunny Perth in Western Australia, thank you so much for your contributions tonight, guys. It's been absolutely fabulous. It's exactly what the design of this was to have, and that is to have comments and direction from you guys. We set the original discussion, and you can either join in with what we're talking about or create your own. And certainly, I think we've had a bit of both, including Jesus Take the Wheel Day.
Objection, Pete. Objection.
Yeah, overruled.
I am 4 hours away from Perth. Thank you very much.
What's the objection?
That I'm four. You said we were all in Perth. I'm not in Perth. I'm a long way away.
I beg your
I'm
pardon.
near Bluff Knoll.
Yes, well, and one of the most beautiful parts of Australia. Thank you very much. Near the Paronga Ups and the Stirling Mountains, and a place after my heart. Did I tell you I used to live in a commune between Albany and Denmark, a little place called Bornholm in the 70s?
You're a bloody hippie as well.
Absolutely, I am. Damn straight. The only non-pot smoking hippies in the southwest we were. Which is kind of a disgrace when you think about it.
I know, I've read in the Bible that
Sounds
God
like a missed
put
opportunity.
everything on all the flowering plants, all the vegetating plants. He put them on earth here for us. So cannabis, perfectly acceptable. God put it here for our use.
Yeah, you make sure you tell that to the police officer next time he opens the car window. See how far they get you. Frank saying it's been fun. Thank you all. No, thank you, mate. And Australia is a beautiful country. I've been there once in a previous life. Where to in Australia, Frank? Did you visit? I bet you it wasn't
Previous
Albany.
life, he's reincarnation.
Yeah, he's a spiritual dude on a journey, astral planing, you know. But speaking of
Is
spirits, and stuff,
aquaplaning like aquaplaning?
no, nothing
Oh,
like it at
okay.
all. When we lived on this commune, we used to talk about a place called Findhorn or Findhorn in Scotland, where they used to grow roses on beach sand. And so we used to talk to the plant divas, the big curry trees we believe had spirits in them. And this is without marijuana, I'm telling you.
I
This
was going to
is
say,
straight
and there
as
was
the
no
diet.
dope.
No drugs whatsoever.
Okay.
No drugs
I have
whatsoever.
a big cabinet at home that has spirits in it.
Yes. Bit of gin, tequila. All right.
I already did that joke. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's mate, you're not coming back again. That's
You're not welcome here anymore.
I was 10 or so, I don't remember. Okay, doesn't remember. Okay. Again, Frank and Fenton, Greg, thank you very much. We shall do this again next Wednesday, 8 o'clock, which will make it on the 10th of April. Wednesday night. We'll come up with something interesting to talk about, whether we revisit. I don't know. Anyway, we will let you know. Thank you so much for everyone joining in. Thanks, Jace. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Luke. And Suresh, who's now gone. Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for all your input. Let's do it again next Wednesday. Sayonara.
See you guys.